we were never soldiers. Soldiers fight wars. They have fronts, strategies, objectives that can be won or lost. We were preventers. Our war ended 10,000 years ago, on the day the last Thunder Warrior drew his final breath on the slopes of Mount Ararat. Our purpose since that moment was singular: to ensure such a war would never be necessary again. We were the final argument, held in perpetual reserve. The unbreakable seal on a vault that should never be opened. I am Custodian Guard Kalistor. I have stood vigil in the inner palace for 2 centuries. I know every grain of polished stone in my assigned gallery, every shift in the harmonic hum of the palace's geothermal heart, every authorized soul permitted to walk its halls. My world was one of perfect, pristine stillness, a museum of a future that had been secured, its curator eternally on duty. The siege did not begin for us with the screaming of engines in the atmosphere, or the distant, continent-shaking thud of orbital bombardment. It began with a silence. The silencing of the ASTRONOMICN.1 moment. It was their psychic pressure at the edge of awareness, a constant golden pulse that was the breath of the Imperium. The next, it was gone. Not dimmed, severed. The psychic shockwave was physical. I felt it in my auramite, a sudden, chilling absence, as if the sun had vanished but left no cold. In the gallery, the perpetual flame in the sconce of the banner of unity guttered and died, not from lack of fuel, but from a lack of will to burn. That was the moment I understood. The vault was being breached. The war we were designed to prevent was here. The change was not chaos. Not at first. It was a meticulous, terrifying shift in priority. The quiet halls of the inner palace, once a sanctuary, became a fortress within a fortress. The air, once scented with ozone and ancient stone, now carried the metallic temps of activated void shields and the ozone stench of teleportation arrays. My brothers, who had stood as statues for decades, now moved with a purpose that was chilling in its intensity. We were not preparing to defend a palace. We were preparing to defend a concept. And the enemy was at the gates, not to conquer it, but to unmake it. My post was reassigned. No longer the gallery of conquest, with its faded murals of unity. I was sent to the hall of remembrance. It did not hold weapons. It held memory. Data crystals containing the foundational treaties of the Imperium. The original gin codes of the Primarch project, what fragments remained. The cartographic logs of the Great Crusade's first decade. It was a history. Our history. And it was deemed a target. My shield brother, Aquilon, stood with me. For 120 years, we had shared the same silent vigil. We had never needed words. Now, as the distant, muffled thunder of the outer walls collapse echoed through the bedrock, he spoke, his voice a low vibration in the still air. "They will come for this," he said, not looking at me, his eyes scanning the archways of the hall. Not for strategic value, for symbolic erasure, to burn the ledger of their own creation. "They will not reach it," I replied. It was not a boast, a statement of thermodynamic certainty. As certain as gravity, we were wrong. The enemy did not come as Legionis. They came as a symptom. The hall's lumiglobes flickered, then burned a sickly, bruised purple. The air grew cold, then thick, resisting movement. The polished marble of the floor wept a oily, black resin. This was not an assault. It was an infection. Reality itself was rejecting the palace's truth. From the shadows between the great data stacks, they coalesced. Not from the doors, from the idea of doorways. Things of teeth and brass and impossible angles, their forms a mockery of life and machinery. Demons, the lies given form. They did not roar. They chittered. A sound like breaking glass and children's screams. Aquilon and I moved as one. Our guardian spears came to life, the soft hum of their field generators, a pure, clean sound against the psychic static. We did not fight as soldiers. We fought as surgeons, excising a cancer. Every movement was precise, economical, eternal. My spear point found the core of a thing that scampered on too many limbs, and it burst not into gore, but into a shower of bitter ash and a fading shriek of denied existence. Aquilon's sentinel blade cleaved through a winged horror, its form unspooling like rotten thread, but for every one we banished, 2 more bled from the walls. They were not attacking us. They were attacking the hall. Claws of shadow scraped at the data stacks, leaving corrosive, runic scars. A floating, eye-covered abomination vomited a stream of psychic filth over a crystal array, which clouded and cracked with a sound like a dying star. We were holding the line, but the line was disintegrating beneath our feet. The history of the Imperium was being defaced, not by conquerors, but by a plague of unreality. Then he came, not the Emperor. We felt his titanic struggle elsewhere, a psychic quake shaking the very core of the palace. This was one of his sons, one of the lost. A giant in sea-green armor, once glorious, now a cathedral to decay and arrogance. He filled the archway, his presence a physical weight that made the air scream. The demons parted for him, not in subservience, but in avid anticipation. This was their general. Horus Lupercal's chosen butcher for this quiet, intellectual murder. He did not even glance at us. His eyes, glowing with captured pain, swept the hall. Sentiments, he boomed, his voice layered with 100 echoing whispers. Ghosts of a dead dream. Let us give them a proper funeral. He raised a taloned fist, wreathed in balefire, to unleash a wave of annihilation that would reduce 10 millennia of recorded history to screaming dust. Aquilon moved, not with a warrior's cry, but with a custodian's absolute duty. He did not charge the Primarch. That would be suicide. He interposed himself between the raised fist and the central data stack, the one that held the original, a physical copy of the Treaty of Mars. He planted his feet, raised his shield, and activated its full, holy auric field. A wall of golden light flared into being. The Primarch's blow fell. It was not a sound. It was the cessation of sound. A sphere of silent, purple-black annihilation met the golden wall of Aquilon's shield. For a microsecond, they held. Then, the golden light began to fracture. I saw Aquilon's auramite boots grind into the marble, carving furrows. I saw the muscles in his arms and back cord and strain against a force that could shatter countenance. I saw his helmet's optic lenses fixed ahead, not on the god of war before him, but on the relic he shielded. He did not look at me. He did not need to. In that moment, his entire being communicated a single, unbreakable imperative: protect the record. The Primarch leaned forward, applying more pressure. The fractures in the auric field. Aquilon's shield began to glow white-hot at the point of impact. I knew what would happen when it failed. He would be unmade, atomized, his very soul devoured by the warp stuff fueling that blow. I had a choice. aid my brother, and likely share his fate, leaving the hall undefended, or fulfill his final, silent order. There was no choice. As the deafening silence of the clash reached its peak, I turned from the titanic struggle. I did not run. I strode to the central data stack. My spear was not a weapon here. It was a key. I plunged the haft into a designated port at the stack's base, overriding all protocols. With a shudder and a sigh of releasing clamps, the entire stacker column of crystal and plasteel 3 meters tall, detached from the floor. It was built for this. For exile, behind me, I heard the catastrophic, final shattering of auric energy. I heard the wet, terrible sound of auramite failing, of a body breaking. I did not turn. I could not. His sacrifice was a wall of time, and every microsecond was bought with his eternity. I gripped the stack, hefting its immense weight as if it were a standard. I activated the emergency teleport Homer embedded in my armor's core, a beam of pure, golden light, an echo of the Astronomican's last gasp, lanced down from the vaulted ceiling, engulfing me and the data dash stack. In the instant of translation, in the screaming non-space between realities, I saw it. A final, clear image transmitted from Aquilan's dying armor, not of the triumphant Primarch, but of the data stack, intact, vanishing in a column of light. His optic feed held on that image until the very last nanosecond before it went dark forever. I rematerialized in the deepest, most secure vault of the palace, a bunker carved into Terra's molten heart. The air here still held the sterile chill of preservation. Around me were other artifacts, the husk of the Emperor's first power armor, the empty incubation cradles of the Primarchs, a single withered flower from a forgotten garden. I placed the data stack beside them. Another relic, another tomb. I did not weep for Aquilon. Tears are for beings of flesh who do not understand the calculus of eternity. My brother had traded his continuous, eternal vigil for a finite, perfect act of preservation. In the economy of our duty, it was a transaction of absolute value. He had saved a truth. In a war of lies, that is the only victory that matters. I took my place before the new stack. My vigil resumed. Here, in the silent dark, the thunder of the siege was a faint, ugly vibration in the stone. I could not hear the final battle between the Emperor and Horus, but I felt its conclusion. A psychic detonation that scoured the warp, a silent scream that echoed in the hollow place where the Astronomican had been, followed by a new, terrible, grinding stillness. It was over. The vault had held, but at a cost that redefined the universe. When the others found me, days or weeks later, they brought news. The Emperor was interred upon the golden throne. The traitors were broken, fleeing into the eye of their own madness. The Imperium had survived. I looked at the data stack I had saved. The history of a dream of unity. I looked at my empty hands, which had held a brother's purpose for a fleeting moment, and I knew the truth they would not speak aloud. The Emperor's last stand was not a victory. It was a draw negotiated at the price of his life and eternity. The Imperium did not survive. It was replaced. The living, breathing dream of unity died in the siege. What rose from the ashes was a necropolis, an empire of the dead, ruled by the corpse of its god, fueled by the memory of a betrayal so profound it poisoned the future forever. My vigil is different now. I do not guard a living future. I guard a tomb. I am Custodian Guard Kalistor. My brother died to save a memory. and I live to ensure that memory, however painful, however tarnished, is never erased. Because in the grim darkness that now reigns, a remembered truth, even a terrible one, is the only light left, and we will keep it forever. They came for me eventually, not the enemy, my own. The surviving custodians, led by a captain general whose golden armor was scarred black by energies I could not name. The bunker's door, inscribed with warding seals that glowed with a feverish post-siege intensity, hissed open. He entered alone. His presence was no longer the serene, absolute authority I had known. It was grim, hardened, sharpened by loss and a purpose that had turned inwards. He looked at the data stack, then at me. His helmet was off. His face was that of a classical hero, but his eyes were ancient glaciers, carrying the weight of a forever winter that had just begun. Guardian Kalistor, his voice was gravel grinding on stone. Your teleport Homer signature led us here. The Hall of Remembrance is lost. Tribune Aquilon's life signs terminated. Report, I gave it. Clinically, the infection of reality. The demonic incursion. The traitor Aquilon's interposition and sacrifice. The data stack retrieval. I offered the mission log feed from my armor, the final image from Aquilon's systems. He absorbed it all without a flicker of emotion. The death of a brother, the salvation of a relicate, was all data to him now. Necessary, tragic data. You chose preservation of the record over aid to your shield brother, he stated. He chose it for me, I replied. His final action defined the priority. I executed it. The Captain General was silent for a long moment, his gaze drifting to the withered flower in its stasis field. A correct assessment. The material of the Treaty of Mars is irreplaceable. Its destruction would have been a wound to the legal soul, a wound that may have festered in ways we cannot foresee. He finally looked back at me. You are relieved of this post. The artifact will be transferred to the newly established Archivum Terra. You will return to the Companions' Barracks for reassignment. Reassignment. The word felt alien. Our assignments were for eternity. The war is over, he said, and the way he said it made the words a lie. The form of the war has changed. Our duty has not, but its application must come. I followed him out of the deep vault, back into the light. But the light was wrong. Terra was a corpse. The sky, once a pale blue or the majestic black of space, was a permanent, bruised twilight of ash and chemtrails. The air, which had always carried the scent of ozone and mountain frost, now stank of promethium, void shield ionization, and beneath it all, the sweet sick odor of uncounted billions of dead, burning on mountains of pyres that dotted the shattered landscape. The palace was not a palace anymore. It was a gargantuan, half-melted fortress, its spires broken teeth against the ugly sky. Scaffolding swarmed over it like maggots on a wound. This was not the world we had protected. This was the scar left after the surgery to remove a cancer, and the patient was not healing. It was just persisting. The Companions' Barracks were a shadow of their former selves. 1/10 of the bunks were occupied. Many of my brothers were gone, not just Aquilon, but scores of others, consumed in the final apocalyptic battles in the throne room and the webway gate. Those who remained moved with a new, brittle intensity. The serene confidence was gone, replaced by a cold, focused fury that had nowhere to go. We had failed, not in our duty, but in our purpose. The war we were made to prevent had happened, and we had not been enough to stop it. My new assignment was not a gallery or a hall. It was a wall, the newly built, kilometer-thick fortification called the Lion's Gate, rising from the ruins of the old spaceport. My post was a watch station on its highest battlement, gazing not inward at the heart of the Imperium, but outward into the void. My duty was to watch the approaches to Terra, to scan for the return of the enemy. It was a sentry's duty, the duty of a soldier, not a custodian. I stood my watch. I watched the endless streams of mangled starships limping home, their hulls tattooed with the fresh iconography of skulls and eagles, a desperate, aggressive piety born from the betrayal. I watched the black funeral barges carrying the dead of the siege into the sun. I watched the first, clumsy attempts at fortifying the solar system, the budding rings of battle stations, the minefields, the patrol routes. It was all so frantic, so mortal, so temporary. This was the new Imperium. Not a golden dream, but a grim fortress, building its walls higher and thicker, staring into a darkness it now knew was infinitely hostile and came from within. One night, during the long vigil, a figure joined me on the battlement. Not a custodian. A woman, her face etched with grief and a fanatic's calm, wearing the simple robes of a newly formed order the brides of the Emperor. They would later be called. An early sister of silence, her null presence, a cold void in the warp-scarred air. She did not look at me. She looked at the same stars I was watching. After a long silence, she spoke, her voice rough from disuse or smoke. "They say he broke the War Master," she said, "that he sacrificed himself to save us." I said nothing. My silence was an answer. She continued, undeterred. "I was in the markets when the demons came. Not the big ones, the little ones. The ones that look like your dead children, whispering your regrets. I saw a man, a good man, a baker, take his own flamer to his family and then himself, because a thing wearing his mother's face told him they were already damned." She finally turned her hollow eyes to me. "Your Emperor, did he save us from that?" I thought of Aquilon holding the line against a Primarch's hellfire to save a treaty. I thought of the data stack, sitting in a new archive, a fossil of a dead age. I thought of the absolute, silent certainty I had felt before the siege, and the hollow, dutiful rage that had replaced it. "He bought us time," I said, the words tasting of ash. "He did not save us, he postponed the ending. The war you speak of, the war of whispers and regrets, that war is not over. It is the only war now, and it is forever." She nodded, as if I had confirmed her darkest truth. "Then we will fight it," she said, with a terrifying simplicity. "Forever." She left me on the wall. I watched the stars again, but now I didn't see tactical approaches or potential threats. I saw Aquilon's final moment, frozen in time. I saw the Traitor Primarch's contemptuous glare. I saw the future, an endless, grinding cycle of siege and fear, of betrayal from within and terror from without, all built upon the foundational trauma of this one catastrophic failure. The Emperor's last stand was not a defiant, glorious sacrifice. It was the closing of a valve on a reactor that had already gone critical. The explosion was contained, but the radiation, the spiritual, psychic radiation of the heresy would leak out, poisoning every generation to come forever. I am Custodian Guard Kalistor. I stand on a wall that was built from the rubble of everything I was sworn to protect. I guard a dream that died in the birthing of a nightmare. My brother is dead, his sacrifice recorded in a data stack few will ever see. My emperor is a corpse on a throne, a machine to keep the darkness at bay for one more day. And my vigil has changed. Once, I guarded the future. Now, I guard the tomb of that future. I am the watchman at the end of history, ensuring the lights stay on in the mausoleum, while outside, in the infinite dark, the enemy we thought we broke gathers again, learning new ways to make us remember our regrets. The siege of terror never ended. It just became the condition of our existence.